Welcome to Chronicles and Legends. Please hit that subscribe and let us know in the comments where in the world are you tuning in from. Long before mankind dreamed of gods, before angels fell, before forbidden names echoed in darkened halls, they watched. They watched our rise, they watched our fall, and perhaps they were never truly chained. This is not their story. This is ours. Before the first king took a throne, before the first temple touched the sky, before the first sword tasted blood, there were the Watchers, the Grigori. They stood upon the earth as sentinels, silent witnesses to mankind's dawn. They saw the shaping of clay into flesh. They heard the first heartbeat. They watched without word or touch as men grew, built, sinned, and bled. For this was their command: watch, but do not touch. They were not sent to guide. They were not sent to rule. They were sent to observe, to witness the unfolding story of a fragile, violent species called man. It was a role they accepted, a duty they carried, until they fell in love. There is a mountain in the ancient north where the borders of Canaan fade into shadows, a place men once called Mount Hermon. To this day, its name carries a weight the earth cannot shake. For here, 200 angels gathered beneath a moonless sky. Here, the Watchers made their first choice, and their last mistake. At their head stood Samaza, the angel of authority, whose voice commanded the silent host. Beside him, Azazel, the whisperer, whose cunning would haunt mankind's bloodline. They looked upon the daughters of men, fragile, fleeting, burning with life's fever, and desire took root. Not desire for dominion, not lust for power, but a craving for something they had never known, to be part of the human story, to touch, to belong, but even angels fear judgment. Samyaza hesitated, and then Azazel spoke, words lost to history but echoed in every dark pact since. If we fall together. And so, upon Mount Hermon, 200 angels swore an oath. A binding, sacred, catastrophic oath. They would descend into the world of men. They would take human wives. They would bear children of mixed blood. They would teach forbidden knowledge. And if heaven came for them, they would face it as one. They came down like shadows upon the wind. The Watchers abandoned the silent heights for the fires of human villages. They walked among men, taking form, shedding celestial restraint. And mankind welcomed them. For how could men resist beings who shone with a beauty beyond mortal skin? Who whispered secrets never heard before? Who offered gifts that unlocked mysteries of metal, fire, and the stars? To mortals, they were gods. To the Watchers, they were companions. To the heavens, they were traitors. What they taught was never meant for human hands. Azazel taught the art of war, forging blades, shaping armor, binding shields. He taught men to kill with steel, and women to kill with beauty. The art of adornment, the secrets of vanity, the power of desire laced with ruin. Samaza taught enchantments, the weaving of charms, the bending of roots, the whispering of dark names beneath the moon. Other Watchers shared their forbidden crafts. Kokobo taught the secrets of the stars. Penemu taught the corrupting art of writing, how to deceive with ink. Kazdea revealed the hidden arts of poison and abortion, the power to end life before its first breath, and mankind drank deeply. Knowledge once guarded in heaven's vaults now flowed freely in human hands. But every gift has its price. From their union with the daughters of men, a new race was born. The Nephilim, giants in body, monsters in appetite. Born of angelic might and human frailty, they towered over men and ruled with savage hunger. The Book of Giants, a fragment from the Dead Sea Scrolls, whispers of their endless lust. They devoured the beasts of the field. They consumed the harvest of men. And when nothing remained, they devoured mankind itself. Even the earth groaned beneath their feet. Their fathers, the Watchers, watched with silent horror, but it was too late. The giants had come. The curse had begun. For a time, heaven remained silent. Perhaps hoping they would repent. Perhaps waiting for the blood to cease. But sin never stops itself. And then the order was given. 4 archangels were sent forth: Michael, Raphael, Uriel, and Gabriel, each with a charge that shook the earth. Bind the Watchers, destroy the Nephilim, cleanse the earth in fire and water. What the Watchers began, heaven would end. They fell not in battle, but in chains. Michael cast down Semyaza. Raphael bound Azazel in a desolate wilderness, beneath sharp stones, hidden in darkness until the day of judgment. The rest were imprisoned in deep chasms beneath the earth, a prison called the Abyss. Their cries echoed through the darkness. But the decree had been spoken. What was forbidden would be silenced forever. This was not a war of heaven against hell. This was not a rebellion of light against darkness. This was a tragedy. A fall born of love, a betrayal born of desire, a curse born of knowledge misused. And its echoes still haunt the world. But this is only the beginning. In the next chapter, the destruction of the Nephilim, the flood meant to erase a world gone wrong, and the chilling truth that some legacies refuse to drown. Because though heaven chained the Watchers, their blood still flows. Some legacies are born in blood, some in silence, and some in hunger. The Watchers fell, the angels were bound, but their children remained. The world had never seen creatures like them, nor would it ever again. The Nephilim, the offspring of Forbidden's union, came into the world neither fully human nor fully divine. They were giants, they were monsters, they were kings. In the earliest days, they walked among men, towering above villages and cities, their shadows cast long before the dawn. They were celebrated, worshipped, feared. Men called them gods, and the Nephilim accepted the title with open hands and hungering hearts. But gods, they were not. The ancient Book of Giants, a text once hidden among the Dead Sea Scrolls, speaks of their insatiable appetites. They devoured flocks, herds, and wild beasts, stripping lands bare with ravenous greed. When the animals were gone, they turned to the harvest of man, grain, fruit, bread meant for children. And when even that could not satisfy, they turned to mankind itself. They stalked the night as predators. They hunted by day as kings. The cries of mothers echoed in empty fields. The wails of villages drowned beneath crushing footsteps. The earth itself, Enoch wrote, groaned beneath their violence. The world bled. And heaven watched. But hunger was only the beginning. With knowledge inherited from their fallen fathers, the Nephilim began to twist creation itself. They taught men to make war without honor. They taught dark rituals to summon power forbidden by heaven. They practiced blood rites, sacrificial ceremonies designed to draw strength from death itself. They corrupted beasts, merging creatures unnaturally, birthing monsters that stalked the ancient world's edges. Legends across cultures whisper of them. The bull-headed giants of Crete, the serpent-legged kings of ancient Mesopotamia, the monstrous hybrid beings feared by early Egyptian priests. The echoes of these creatures became myths, but they began as something terribly real. The giants were not content to rule the earth alone. Some traditions speak of their ultimate rebellion, a war against the very heavens. They believed, born of angelic blood, they could storm the gates of the divine. They built towers that scraped the sky, They forged weapons imbued with forbidden knowledge. They gathered armies of men drunk on promised power. And they marched. Legends speak of a war not fought in heaven, but aimed at heaven. The result? They failed. Of course they failed. But in failing, they sealed their doom. Heaven does not move in haste. The Creator, patient, silent, allowed humanity's story to unfold. But the cries of the earth, the blood of the innocent, the violence of the Nephilim, they reached a breaking point, and so the decree came. I will blot out man, whom I have created, from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. A flood was coming, but it was no mere storm. It was an execution. In the heart of a world teeming with corruption, one man remained untouched, Noah. His blood, untainted by the seed of the Watchers, his heart, unseduced by the Nephilim's power. It is said he walked with God, but perhaps more importantly, he walked away from the Watchers, chosen not for perfection, but for preservation. Noah built his ark. He gathered the clean beasts. He prepared his family, and as the first dark clouds gathered, the Nephilim watched. Did the Nephilim stand against the flood? Did they rage at the rising waters? Did they cry for mercy as the skies opened? The texts disagree. The Book of Giants speaks of dreams, visions of doom haunting the giants before the flood. They saw visions of their destruction. They begged the prophet Enoch to intercede on their behalf. They feared death, but not enough to change. When the flood came, some fought the rising tide. Some cursed the heavens. Some tried to flee to the highest peaks. All fell. The waters rose. The giants drowned. Their cries silenced beneath an endless sea. The flood wiped the world clean. The Nephilim were gone. Or were they? The Bible itself records a strange thing. Long after the floodwaters receded, giants remained. The Anakim, giants dwelling in the land of Canaan, feared even by Israel's warriors. The Rephaim, shadowy beings called the Dead Ones, spoken of in hushed tones. Og, king of Bashan, a giant whose iron bed stood as a testament to his size and strength. Did some Nephilim survive, or did the bloodline resurface? Hidden within human veins? Some traditions whisper that the corruption was never fully washed away, that even in Noah's family, the shadow lingered. Ancient rabbis, Christian mystics, and Islamic scholars all point to the same chilling possibility, that after the flood, the blood of the Watchers remained diluted, dormant, waiting. It surfaced in kings who ruled with unnatural cruelty, in warriors whose strength defied understanding, in bloodlines that claimed divine right with eerie certainty. Some even suggest secret societies trace their origins to this hidden legacy, heirs of the Watchers' forbidden knowledge. They do not walk as giants, they walk as rulers, as whisperers, as Watchers. And what of the Watchers themselves, bound in the abyss, chained in darkness beneath the earth, their bodies imprisoned? Their influence, perhaps not. Some ancient texts hint that their chains grow weaker, that their whispers seep through cracks in the world, that their oath, sworn on Mount Hermon, remains unbroken in spirit, and that somewhere, they are still watching. The flood erased a world, but it did not erase the echo of the Watchers' fall. It lingers in bloodlines. It breathes in shadows. It waits in whispered traditions passed from generation to generation, because evil does not drown easily. In the next chapter, we descend into the legacy of the Forbidden's blood, the rise of secret orders, the spread of occult knowledge, and the chilling possibility that some Watchers walk the earth once more. The giants drowned, the Watchers were chained, the world began again, or so mankind believed. But shadows have a habit of surviving where the light fails to reach. And though the Nephilim vanished beneath the flood, their legacy flowed quietly. Through bloodlines, the world mistook for kings, conquerors, and chosen ones. Long after the floodwaters receded, whispers of giants persisted. In the lands of Canaan, in the courts of ancient kings, in the back alleys of forgotten cities. Traces of their bloodline surfaced, not as towering monsters, but as rulers cloaked in mortal flesh. The Anakim, giant clans dwelling in the hill country, known for their fearsome stature. The Rephaim, the dead ones, half-forgotten remnants said to dwell in shadowed places. The Amim and Zamzummim, whispered of in ancient Hebrew lore as tribes that walked the line between man and something darker. When the Israelites spied the land of Canaan, their scouts trembled. They reported seeing giants, sons of Anak, before whom men seemed like grasshoppers. How could giants still walk the earth after the flood? Some claimed they were survivors. Others believed their blood mingled with mankind once more, diluted, but never extinguished. Throughout history, rulers have claimed authority by divine right. Kings declared themselves chosen by heaven. Emperors traced their lines to gods who fell from the sky. Coincidence? Or the silent echo of a bloodline the world forgot? The pharaohs of Egypt, claiming descent from celestial beings. The kings of Sumer, boasting lineages stretching back to divine ancestors. The warrior kings of Bashan, like Og, whose iron bed symbolized his monstrous stature. And in more recent times, whispers cling to European royal houses, secret orders, and esoteric societies, claiming blood ties to ancient beings beyond mortal comprehension. Not giants in form, but in ambition, in cruelty, in power. As bloodlines wove themselves into the thrones of the world, another legacy took root, one even more dangerous. The forbidden knowledge of the Watchers did not drown in the flood. It survived, hidden in symbols, encoded in rituals, passed hand to hand through whispers in darkened chambers. Occult orders emerged across history, each claiming secret wisdom older than the stars. The Rosicrucians, the Knights Templar, the Hermetic orders of the Renaissance. Even the elusive Priory of Sion, a name shadowed in secrecy, is whispered to have origins tied to ancient bloodlines and forbidden rites. They spoke of enlightenment, of hidden knowledge, of secret dominions over kings and empires. But beneath their symbols, beneath their lofty words, lay a darker inheritance, one rooted in the legacy of the Watchers. Across cultures, certain symbols recur, far beyond coincidence. The all-seeing eye, a symbol of knowledge, of watching, of silent dominion. The twin pillars representing the threshold between the divine and the forbidden. The Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its tail, an emblem of eternity and hidden cycles. These marks appear in architecture, ancient seals, coins, and royal insignias. Did these societies discover them independently? Or were they inherited, silent echoes of a pact sworn on Mount Hermon? A blood oath that never truly ended. As centuries passed, the ancient rites adapted, disguised beneath layers of new language. Alchemy, once believed to be mere metallurgical fantasy, drew heavily on symbols passed from the Watchers' forbidden arts. Astrology, condemned by prophets, grew from roots laid in the dark arts taught by the Grigori. Occult sciences, in grimoires like the Key of Solomon and the Book of Raziel, hid beneath religious language while preserving forbidden names and sigils. And even modern secret societies, Masonic lodges, esoteric brotherhoods, bear traces of rites far older than they admit. Were they students of enlightenment, or unwitting inheritors of a Watcher's curse? In every esoteric tradition, there's a dividing line. The right-hand path, the pursuit of divine will, spiritual ascension. The left-hand path, the seeking of power, forbidden knowledge, and mastery over the self. The Watchers. were the first to walk the left-hand path. Their fall was not rebellion for power's sake. It was the belief they could seize knowledge meant to be observed, not owned. And that legacy became a current running beneath centuries of occult practice, the shadow side of every sacred tradition, the dark twin of every holy order. Today, some say the Watchers' influence is myth, that the Nephilim were ancient exaggerations, that secret orders are mere historical curiosity, but in quiet places, whispers persist. Of families whose influence defies logic, of names that appear again and again in the shadows of power, of unseen hands guiding the fate of nations. Are these just conspiracies? Or has the bloodline endured, hidden in plain sight? Perhaps they do not tower over men. Perhaps they stand beside us, unseen, waiting. The Watchers swore an oath upon Mount Hermon. If we fall together. They did fall. They were chained. But oaths bound in blood echo longer than chains forged by angels. Some esoteric traditions claim that oath was renewed in secret by men who carry their blood or their will. That pacts were made in darkened chambers, that oaths were spoken in forbidden tongues, and that the Watcher's legacy flows on through hidden hands, ancient rites, and bloodlines untouched by time, not as giants, but as whispers, as Watchers, still observing, still waiting. This is the legacy of the Watchers. Bloodlines woven into royal houses, forbidden knowledge masked as enlightenment, secret orders hiding the ancient pact, and whispers that never fade. Because when angels fall, they do not fall alone. In the next chapter, we dive into the chilling rise of occult movements in modern history, how the Watchers' influence may have shaped empires, the silent hand in revolutions and global powers, and the haunting possibility that some are preparing for a return. Some chains are forged with iron, others with silence. The Watchers were bound beneath the earth, their children drowned beneath the flood, but shadows have always found ways to walk the earth. And in the centuries that followed, the echoes of the Watchers' rebellion did not fade. They evolved, they adapted, they hid in the folds of history's grandest chapters, unseen, but never absent. The ancient world fell, kingdoms crumbled, empires faded into dust, but secret societies endured. They rose quietly beside thrones, whispering into the ears of kings. They gathered beneath cathedrals, behind merchant guilds, inside royal courts. Their names changed with the ages, but their symbols, their silent purpose, remained eerily familiar. The Rosicrucians, emerging in 17th century Europe, claiming hidden knowledge from ancient sources. The Knights Templar, once crusaders, rumored to have unearthed forbidden texts beneath Solomon's temple. The Freemasons, builders of cathedrals and secret rites, guarding symbols older than the empires they served. Were they political players, mystical seekers, or the keepers of something darker, a legacy of the fallen Watchers, passed through bloodlines and brotherhoods alike? Their rituals spoke of ancient wisdom. Their symbols mirrored those once taught by the Watchers. But more chilling, their influence seeped into the highest echelons of power. The Renaissance, an age celebrated for art, science, and humanism. But beneath its gilded surface, something darker stirred. The occult Renaissance. Esoteric orders flourished, drawing from ancient texts, grimoires, and whispered legends. John Dee, advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, practiced Enochian magic, claiming to speak with angels, or something that answered in their name. Paracelsus, father of toxicology, merged alchemy with forbidden spiritual practices. Giordano Bruno, executed for heresy, claimed knowledge of infinite worlds and angelic beings beyond comprehension. What united them? Their pursuit of knowledge beyond mortal limits, their fascination with the forbiddens. And among their hidden notes, symbols, sigils, and names that traced unsettling lines back to the Watchers. The same desire that brought down the Grigori breathed anew in human hearts. Revolutions reshaped nations. The French Revolution toppled kings, shredded monarchies, and proclaimed the Age of Reason. But behind the cries for liberty, some believe ancient hands stirred the flames. Masonic lodges, rumored to have seeded revolutionary ideals in France's intellectual circles. The Illuminati, a secretive Bavarian order seeking to reshape society under enlightened principles. Historians dismiss these connections as myth. But consider this: the French Revolution unleashed chaos. It toppled a royal bloodline claimed to descend from ancient kings. Kings whispered to hold divine rights. Coincidence? Or a silent move in a game far older than France itself? A final attempt by Watcher-influenced lines to reclaim dominance, or destroy rival bloodlines forever. By the 19th and 20th centuries, the occult had re-emerged from whispers into open fascination. Secret orders became public obsessions. Hidden rites turned into published doctrines. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn practiced rituals invoking ancient angelic beings and forbidden forces. Aleister Crowley, self-proclaimed beast 666, channeled entities claiming knowledge beyond human origin. Theosophical Society spoke of ascended masters, ancient races, and secret bloodlines influencing mankind's destiny. Their symbols? Their languages? Eerily reminiscent of traditions tracing back to the Watchers. Even if those practitioners never realized it, it was no longer hidden. It was celebrated. The forbiddens became fashionable, but perhaps that was always the plan. Beyond the occult circles, families of immense power rose to global prominence. Royal houses, banking dynasties, political bloodlines, always the same names in the same places of power. Across generations, were they merely successful families? Or heirs to ancient pacts? Whispers speak of marriages arranged in shadows to preserve the line. Symbols passed through family crests bearing silent references to the Watchers. Ancient texts guarded in private collections never shown to the public. Conspiracy or continuity? Perhaps some bloodlines learned to hide better than their fallen ancestors. The 20th century, a time of technology, science, and global war. Yet shadows moved in tandem with every advance. Occult fascination gripped world leaders, secret programs, and clandestine societies. Occult experiments under the Nazi regime, hunting ancient artifacts, seeking the power of the old blood. Aleister Crowley's influence in British intelligence circles, weaving occultism with espionage. The secret symbology within U.S. governmental seals and architecture, echoes of ancient Watcher symbols hiding in plain sight. Was this coincidence, or the final phase of a long-laid plan? A silent influence guiding mankind toward chaos, toward a return, toward something older than war itself. Today, the world moves at the speed of light. Digital empires rise, global networks intertwine. Knowledge flows without borders, but with it, a revival of dark interest in the occult. Online communities obsessed with forbidden knowledge. Secret societies adapting ancient rites to digital platforms. Global conspiracies blurring the line between myth and reality. The Watchers no longer need to walk the earth in chains. They walk in algorithms, in symbols shared across screens, in whispers amplified by the world's new throne, the internet. If the Watchers' influence shaped kings, revolutions, and secret orders, what are they preparing for now? Some esoteric scholars suggest a chilling answer. The return of the Watchers is not about physical chains breaking. It is about preparing mankind for a world where their influence is welcomed, not feared. A world desensitized to forbidden knowledge. A world that worships power, appearance, and secret wisdom. A world begging for watchers to rise again. Are we that world? From ancient thrones, to secret orders, to revolutions, to digital dominion, the shadow of the watchers lingers. Not as monsters of flesh, not as giants of old, but as a silent hand, a hidden influence, behind every throne and under every crown, waiting, watching, moving. Because when angels fall, they fall beyond chains. They fall into history itself. In the next chapter, we journey into the forbidden texts, the grimoires, the apocrypha, the whispers that survive the ages. We will uncover the chilling evidence that even now, the Watchers' names are invoked in secret, and perhaps answered. Some legacies are carved in blood, some in ink. The Watchers fell into darkness. Their bloodlines faded into the shadows of history, but their names never vanished. For as long as mankind could carve symbols into stone, scratch ink onto parchment, or whisper words beneath the veil of night, there were those who sought the forbidden knowledge of the fallen ones. And in hidden places, bound in leather and blood, the knowledge of the Watchers endured, waiting for the hands bold enough or foolish enough to claim it. In every era, grimoires, books of magic, invocation, and hidden wisdom have surfaced among the fearful and the curious. Most were dismissed as superstition. Some were burned by fearful hands, but a rare few carried something far darker. The Book of Enoch, the first great warning. More than a text, it was a testimony. It spoke of the Watchers' fall, their forbidden union, and the judgment pronounced upon them. But within its verses, hints of names. Names believed by occult scholars to be keys, invocations not merely of history, but of presence. Some sects treated the Book of Enoch not as a warning, but as a manual, a blueprint for contacting those chained beneath the earth. The Book of Raziel, a text shrouded in Kabbalistic mysticism, said to have been given by the archangel Raziel to Adam after the fall. It contains forbidden knowledge whispered from the mouth of God himself, but within its labyrinthine pages, references to Watchers, hints at secrets meant only for angels, and methods to access the names behind names believed to be keys to the Watchers' prisons. The Key of Solomon, one of the most infamous grimoires of all time, presented as a manual for summoning spirits and commanding angels. But hidden within certain translations and marginalia are references not to obedient angels, but to those bound beneath the earth, whose names must not be spoken, yet always are. Was Solomon the wise, or Solomon the summoner? Beyond the grimoires, whispered traditions speak of rituals designed not to banish, but to invite. Certain occult sects claim to preserve rites that trace back, not to medieval Europe, but to the days when the Watchers walked openly. These rites follow 3 silent rules. The name must be spoken. For every Watcher, there's a true name, a hidden name, and a chained name. Speaking the true name is said to call them from beyond the veil. The blood must be offered, not sacrifice, but lineage. The ritual must be performed by one whose blood carries even a drop of the ancient line. This, they claim, is the only key that unlocks the abyss. The pact must be renewed, echoing the Watchers' original oath. Those invoking their names must swear a binding pact, that if they fall together. Modern occult scholars have labeled these as myths, fairy tales for the macabre. But scattered records suggest otherwise. Beyond the grand halls of known secret societies, exist the lodges no one dares name, organizations known only in whispers as the Sons of Semyaza, the Circle of Azazel, the Covenant of Mount Hermon, each claiming direct descent from the Watchers' Pact. Their rites are rumored to be chillingly precise. Names of the Watchers invoked in languages older than recorded history. Bloodlines traced through hidden genealogies. Rituals conducted in secret places, abandoned churches, underground chambers, or remote mountain caves. They do not seek public power. They do not flaunt influence. Their goal is darker: to prepare for the return. In the 20th and 21st centuries, isolated reports have surfaced, accounts dismissed as hoaxes, delusions, or dark fiction, but too many follow the same disturbing pattern. Secretive groups found with esoteric symbols linked to the Watchers. Individuals claiming visions of veiled figures standing in shadowed corners, silent, observing, waiting. Ritual circles discovered in abandoned places, always marked with twin pillars and sigils resembling ancient angelic seals. Perhaps these are coincidence. Perhaps human imagination plays cruel tricks, or perhaps the rituals worked. Throughout history, the same names return: Samjaza, Azazel, Arakiba, Kokabel, Sariel, in ancient scriptures, in medieval grimoires, in whispered occult traditions. Always they surface. Always they remain. It is as though the names themselves refuse to be forgotten, or refuse to allow themselves to be forgotten. If the chains that bind the Watchers are spiritual, what happens when mankind willingly unlocks them? What happens when ancient names are spoken without fear? When pacts are renewed in secret? When the world, drunk on knowledge and indifferent to consequences, invites the forbidden once again? Is the return of the Watchers a matter of prophecy or a matter of time? Some occult doctrines speak of a chilling belief that the Watchers never truly left, that their influence flows in bloodlines, that their whispers guide hidden societies, that every ritual, every invocation, every grimoire strengthens the link between the chained and the living, and that one day the chains will break, not with a scream, but with a whisper, a name spoken, a pact renewed, a Watcher returned. Today, some of these grimoires rest in private collections. Others lie locked in archives, dismissed as curiosities. A few remain unread, their pages sealed by time and fear alike. But even closed books whisper, even sealed names wait. And somewhere, beneath stone and silence, the Watchers listen. In the next chapter, we descend into prophecy itself, ancient writings from across cultures that warn of a return, a final rebellion, and a shadow that may soon rise from beneath the earth. The question is not whether the Watchers will return, but whether we will see them when they do. Some stories warn, others whisper, the Watchers fell. Their bloodlines faded, their grimoires remained hidden in shadows. But amid all these echoes, one question loomed larger than all others. What if the Watchers were never meant to stay chained forever? And what if they are prophesied to return? From the mountains of ancient Canaan, to the temples of Mesopotamia, to the hidden scrolls of early mystics, a pattern emerges, scattered prophecies that speak not only of the past fall of the Watchers, but of a future awakening. In Jewish apocalyptic writings, the Book of Enoch does not end with the Watchers binding. It speaks of a future judgment, a time when the chains will break, and the Watchers will face their final fate. But before that day, their influence will rise again. The earth will once more tremble beneath the weight of their legacy. In Christian eschatology, echoes of this prophecy appear subtly woven into the book of Revelation. The abyss is opened. The bound are released. Dark forces emerge upon the earth, not from hell, but from beneath. The abyssos, the bottomless pit, becomes the stage for the return of the ancient chained ones. They ascend not as men, but as shadows bearing ancient names. In Islamic traditions, the day of Qiyamah speaks of angels bearing wrath, and of hidden forces once locked away, returning in the end times. While Azazel is condemned, the name echoes beneath the surface, tied to whispers of beings unleashed upon a world lost to its desires. The earth will yield up what it has hidden, and the chains of the forbiddance will break beneath the weight of human invitation. Across all these traditions, the prophecy is clear in its ambiguity. The Watchers may return, not in rebellion, but as a consequence of mankind's choice. Prophets, mystics, and esoteric scholars have long identified certain signs that will precede the return of the Watchers' influence. The rise of forbidden knowledge. Knowledge once sealed away becomes common, celebrated, and commercialized. Mankind will pursue secrets meant to remain hidden, and call it enlightenment, the breaking of the old bonds. Traditions, morals, and ancient covenants will dissolve. Humanity will mock the sacred and embrace the profane. The silence before the storm. A period of eerie peace before global upheaval. A deceptive calm where shadows regain their strength unnoticed. The return of ancient bloodlines. Families and names long hidden will rise to power again. Their symbols will become visible in plain sight, on currency, architecture, and law. The opening of the abyss. A great calamity, natural or man-made, will symbolically or literally break the earth. And with it, the final seal. Do these sound like apocalyptic fantasy? Or do they read like today's headlines? Modern conspiracy theorists often speak of shadow governments, secret societies, and unseen rulers pulling the strings. But what if these aren't theories, but echoes of ancient prophecy? Symbols from ancient Watcher lore embedded in corporate logos. Ritualistic ceremonies televised under the guise of art and entertainment. Global organizations carrying sigils and mottos rooted in forbidden texts. Perhaps the world isn't being shaped by random chance, but by ancient hands still fulfilling an ancient pact. A silent return beneath the skin of modern power. Throughout sacred texts, the abyss is both a place and a symbol. It is the depth where fallen angels are chained, but also the depth within human hearts. The darkness of unchecked desire, pride, and hunger for forbidden knowledge. Some scholars warn, the abyss will not be opened by celestial keys, but by human hands. Through technology that transcends nature. Through experiments that seek to unlock what was never meant to be touched. Through rituals disguised as science, or art, or entertainment. When mankind calls the darkness answers. Every great upheaval in history, war, plague, revolution, leaves scars, but some suggest they also leave cracks. Cracks where shadows seep through. The First World War. The rise of global totalitarian regimes. The Second World War's occult obsessions. The Cold War's secret projects into mind control, psychic experimentation, and forbidden sciences. Were these random historical turns? Or strategic moves in an unseen war between chained Watchers and an unsuspecting world? Prophecy warns, the Watcher's return will not be forced. It will be invited by mankind, not in chains, but in choices. Every time humanity chooses vanity over virtue, power over humility, knowledge over wisdom, the abyss opens a little wider. And when the final choice is made, the Pact of the Watchers will renew itself, not in shadows, but in broad daylight. It is said, the Watchers will rise again when the world no longer sees them as enemies, but as saviors. When mankind calls them heroes, when forbidden knowledge is seen as progress, when chains are called oppression, that is when they will return. And perhaps they already have. Consider the signs. A world obsessed with ancient knowledge, myth, and the occult. The open rise of global elites flaunting power through hidden symbols. The normalization of ideas once considered dark, taboo, or forbidden. The fracturing of old traditions, values, and sacred covenants. And above all, a growing indifference toward the sacred. The conditions spoken of in ancient prophecy may already be here. If the abyss has begun to open, if the Watcher's influence is returning, Is there a way to stop it? Some prophecies hint at a closing of the gate, a possibility, but one that comes at a cost. A return to forgotten virtues. A global rejection of forbidden knowledge. A turning away from pride, vanity, and rebellion. But is mankind willing? Or has the choice already been made? Prophecies are not chains, they are warnings. And warnings can be heeded, but if ignored, they become chains of inevitability. And perhaps the Watchers know this. Perhaps they have always known. Because in the end, it was never about their fall. It was always about ours. In the next chapter, we confront the chilling possibility of the Watchers' true nature, not as rebels, but as architects, not as prisoners, but as silent overseers of mankind's darkest impulses. And the haunting thought that their return was never about escaping, but about us opening the door all along. We have spoken of rebellion, of forbidden knowledge, of a fall from grace. But what if we misunderstood everything? What if the Watchers never fell? What if they were following a plan far older and far darker than mankind ever imagined? Throughout history, we have been taught the Watchers were the first rebels. They lusted, they fell, they were punished. Case closed. But what if that is the story we were meant to believe? Hidden in the folds of ancient texts and forbidden doctrines lies a chilling theory, whispered by occult scholars, hinted at by apocalyptic visionaries. The Watchers were not punished rebels. They were silent architects of a transformation mankind never saw coming. Consider this. The Watchers were not demons. They were not adversaries. They were angels. Beings created in perfect knowledge of divine order. Beings incapable of error. Unless allowed to err, what if their fall was a function of design? A step in a plan not of rebellion, but of reshaping humanity itself. By mingling with mankind, they infused angelic essence into human bloodlines. By teaching forbidden knowledge, they accelerated human development beyond its natural course. By creating the Nephilim, they altered the destiny of creation itself. What if their mission was not to destroy, but to evolve? Hidden Kabbalistic traditions speak of Tzimtzum, the concept of divine contraction, that to create, God withdrew, making space for the finite within the infinite. But some mystics suggest this space allowed for controlled chaos. For shadow to grow alongside light, the Watchers may not have been agents of chaos. They may have been tools of a cosmic experiment, a means of introducing disruption into a static creation. Disruption that would awaken human potential. Through conflict, through forbidden knowledge, through blood mixed with the sacred and the profane. Every great leap in human history followed a brush with the forbiddens. Fire stolen, myth says, by Prometheus. The fruit eaten in Eden, knowledge of good and evil. The Watchers' descent, forbidden arts gifted to man. And with each act, civilization advanced, at a terrible price. But advancement nonetheless. Is it coincidence, or a carefully laid design? Perhaps humanity was never meant to remain in its original form. Perhaps we were meant to fall, to rise beyond our beginnings. And the Watchers were the catalysts, the bloodlines of kings, the shadow families of ancient lore, the rulers whispered to be more than human. If the Watchers' true goal was to seed these lines, not for domination, but for evolution, then their so-called punishment becomes suspect. Why were they bound, yet their bloodlines allowed to persist? Why were their children destroyed, but their knowledge allowed to leak across centuries? What if the chains were not punishment, but containment, a timed release mechanism on a plan unfolding beneath the surface of history? A long game played across millennia. Unlike Lucifer's rebellion, open, proud, and immediate, the Watchers' influence was silent. They did not wage open war. They did not challenge heaven's throne. They whispered. They mingled. They planted seeds. Their legacy was never in battlefields. It was in bloodlines, in symbols, in whispered knowledge passed hand to hand. They moved history forward, not with swords, but with whispers. Look at the world now, a species that conquered the earth, mastered the skies, broke the atom, reached for the stars. A species that, in ancient times, could barely survive, now ruling an entire planet. Some would say this is human brilliance, but others see the Watcher's shadow. We advanced because they intervened. We ruled because they planted ambition in our hearts. We mastered forbidden knowledge because they whispered when no one else would. Was this our destiny? Or theirs? Esoteric scholars speak of the grand experiment theory, a chilling idea buried in obscure occult texts, that mankind is the product of not one creation, but many hands, divine, fallen, and those who stand between. The Watcher's mingling with humanity was not a fall. It was a forging, a deliberate act to create a new species, part divine, part earthly, part something else. A species capable of things even angels feared, capable of reshaping destiny itself. The Watchers were bound in the abyss, but consider this. In ancient mystery traditions, descent into the underworld was not always punishment. Sometimes it was initiation. A descent to gain power, a descent to prepare for return. What if the Watcher's binding was a necessary phase, a symbolic death before resurrection, their return, inevitable, not as conquerors, but as catalysts, completing what they began? Perhaps the Watcher's ultimate legacy was not the Nephilim, nor the bloodlines of kings, nor the secret societies. Perhaps it is us, all of us. A species evolved through centuries of silent influence, minds sharpened by whispers in the dark. A race transformed by forbidden knowledge, always pushing beyond its limits. And when the chains finally break, when the last seal is undone, perhaps the Watchers will not return as saviors, but to witness their final masterpiece. U.S. Prophecies speak of a final day, a return, an unveiling. But perhaps the Watchers never truly left. Perhaps we are their return, and when the last shadow falls, when the abyss opens wide, it will not be with a roar, but with a mirror held to humanity's face. We became the Watchers, and they were watching us become them. In the next chapter, our final chapter, we confront the haunting possibility that the Watchers' plan is complete, that their influence reshaped the world, molded humanity, and forged a future where their shadow lives in every decision we make. And we ask the final question: did the Watchers fall, or did we rise to meet them? We began with a fall, a forbidden union, an ancient oath beneath a silent sky. We have traced their bloodlines, uncovered their whispered knowledge, seen their shadows move through history's darkest chapters. And now, we stand at the edge of the final question. Was it always about us? For thousands of years, mankind believed itself to be the victim of angelic rebellion, a pawn caught between heaven and the fallen. But what if we are not the victims? What if we are the product, the vessel? A species born not of divine command alone, but forged in a crucible of angelic interference, forbidden knowledge, and silent manipulation. We were shaped in clay, but perhaps we were reforged in shadow. The Watchers taught humanity arts beyond its age, weaponry, sorcery, the stars' hidden signs, the secrets of war and seduction. And with every forbidden gift, human minds evolved. Faster, sharper, hungrier. We did not just inherit knowledge. We inherited a hunger to surpass all limits. This was never about giants or monstrous offspring. It was about creating a mind capable of desiring, Everything. A mind that would always seek more power, more control, more knowledge, regardless of cost. When Lucifer fell, he rebelled openly. When the Watchers fell, they did so quietly. But humanity's rebellion has been silent and systemic. We rose against the natural order. We defied divine limits. We turned every sacred gift into a tool for domination. And all along, the Watchers watched, because perhaps that was the plan. Not to overthrow heaven, but to create a new kingdom. Through us. Look at the world today. We harness energies once thought divine. We manipulate life at its genetic core. We seek immortality, artificial intelligence, control over the mind itself. The Nephilim were giants of flesh. We are giants of will. In our age, mankind has become the most dangerous force on Earth. We have become the very legacy the Watchers may have intended to leave. A species that bears the mark of the divine, the hunger of the fallen, and the ambition of both. Some occult doctrines speak of a hidden rite called the Mirror of Azazel, a metaphysical symbol of self-reflection. It teaches that the darkness feared in angels was never in them alone. It exists in us, the desire for forbidden knowledge, the hunger for power, the silent rebellion against all limits. These are not curses placed upon us. They are parts of us, seated by those who watched. We spoke of chains, the bindings of the abyss. But what if those chains were a distraction? While mankind focused on the literal imprisonment of fallen angels, the true influence slipped through the cracks of human hearts. The Watchers did not need to escape the abyss. They only needed mankind to reach in and pull them out. And perhaps that moment has already come. Apocalypse means unveiling, not destruction, not fire, but revelation. Perhaps the return of the Watchers is not about monstrous beings stepping into our world, but about us stepping fully into theirs. A world where forbidden knowledge is embraced, where ancient pacts are renewed through action, not ceremony, where every act of rebellion is seen as progress. We are living the apocalypse, not in the fall of the world, but in the revelation of who we have become. Some esoteric thinkers propose a final, unsettling theory. The human Nephilim hypothesis, the belief that humanity itself is the evolved form of the Nephilim legacy, not giants in size, giants in influence. We are their continuation, their perfected form, no longer monstrous, but magnificent in our power and terrifying in our desires. If true, then the Watchers never fell. They succeeded. Across every continent, every culture, every age, symbols of the Watchers' influence remain. They are not hidden. They are accepted, normalized. The all-seeing eye atop institutions of power. The double pillars of ancient mystery schools embedded in modern architecture. The obsession with angelic imagery distorted into pop culture caricatures. The Watchers never returned. They never had to. We carry them forward in symbols, in systems, in our ceaseless hunger for what lies beyond. On Mount Hermon, 200 angels swore, if we fall together, and perhaps we are the living manifestation of that oath. We have become their shared fall and their shared rise. Every time we cross another forbidden line, we fulfill a pact older than memory, a pact we never agreed to, but embody with every choice we make. What if the Watcher's name, Grigori, the Watchers, was always the final clue? They were never rebels. They were never saviors. They were never prisoners. They were witnesses to us. Watching as humanity took the path they paved. Watching as we unlocked every forbidden door. Watching as we became what they always knew we would. They did not fall. They watched. We fell. And they recorded every step. All along, the silent Watchers stood at the threshold of our choices. And now, they stand before us still, waiting. Not for chains to break, not for prisons to open, but for us to finally realize we became them. This story does not end with a fall, nor with a return, nor with a final war in heaven. It ends with a mirror held up to a world too proud to look and too afraid to turn away. The Watchers were never about power. They were never about rebellion. They were about us, about awakening a nature we never knew we carried, about watching us rise into what we feared most. Them. If the Watchers were meant only to watch, and we have become the ones who took their place, then perhaps the final question is not whether they will return, but whether we have already become the silent watchers of our own destruction. We began this journey in the shadows of forbidden knowledge, in the whispers of ancient oaths, in the silent fall of angels who were never meant to fall. But perhaps the Watchers never fell at all. Perhaps they waited, watching not their punishment, but our choices. And tonight we see clearly, they did not become us. We became them. Thank you for walking this path with me. If this story made you pause, if it stirred something ancient within, then maybe you've always known. If this journey opened your eyes, subscribe, because this is just the beginning of stories the world was never meant to hear. Subscribe.